Hey everybody, welcome to Insider Movies 15, where you get the insider scoop on the movies that everyone thinks that you know, but you don't know because they don't talk about them. Well, they don't advertise them anymore. So we don't have like any kind of walk-in. Basically, when we go online to watch videos like say Amazon Prime or Netflix, they recommend their videos now. They're not going to recommend the classics that you are supposed to know or the ones that they reference and things like that. So if you are in Hollywood or if you're a film student, these are the films that you are supposed to know. And if you are from anywhere else in the world doing anything else, like many of you are, these are the movies that you are learning to love and feed on because they're the good movies. This is where things are actually at. So we're going to do 2 movies this week, and I'm just dressed a little funky because I haven't dressed up in a really long time. I miss dressing up, and so I'm just kind of dressed a little crazy because I had to do it. And also we're doing 2, I guess I did that unconsciously. We are doing some rather sweeping epic films. We're doing 2 big movies this weekend. And I mentioned them in the episode from earlier this week, Monday's episode, which was about the truth about pain clinics. So I figured we better do an insider movies on them. So if you haven't seen them already, it's time that you see them. So the 2 movies are Gone with the Wind and Titanic. Now, unfortunately, Gone with the Wind, it is a stunning film, but it was made in the analog era. It was made on film. It was like the first color film made. It is a stunning, it really brought color. That's one of the reasons it has to be seen. You need to know it. You need to see it. It is just magnificent. But when they put it to digital, now I am picky. That's why you guys love me, because I'm picky. There are those of you who have seen it that might not notice it, but there are those of you who will notice it, so I'm preparing you for that. Yes, that is why there's cat hair all over that curtain, because the cats love to, hi Tiberius, they love to look out the window. So, yeah. All right, so anyway, it is a sweeping film though, and when they converted it to digital, just like when they converted music to digital, like you noticed with the Phantom music, when they converted that to digital, a lot was lost. So, and digital movies don't look the same at all. They have this like metallic look. They have this like empty kind of look versus film. It has this different, like there's this depth of color that you get with actual film. And it's hard to translate that through digital medium. So anyway, just be prepared for that for those of you who have already seen it. So there's this film where Scarlett O'Hara looks into, and that's one of the reasons you've heard about Scarlett. This is the Scarlett they're referring to, Scarlett O'Hara, played by Vivian Leigh. And she is a actress she was with the great Laurence Olivier, and they got together when they weren't married, Royal Shakespeare Company. I love the Royal Shakespeare Company. That's where I met Damian Lewis, and who I was watching the other video and I was like, dear God, I have a crush on Damian Lewis. Great. So I was just being like fangirl there. I was like, hey. I know 6-time Academy Award winners, and I'm just kind of like, but Damian Lewis, I'm like, oh my God. So, but I think it's because of where I met him and who I was when I met him, and the roles that he played. Dear God, he plays these evil guys, and much more evil. Like in Shakespeare, they're really bad. So, but much more evil than the guys that he plays now, like on Billions. That ain't nothing. Like that ain't nothing to what he used to do. And he'd make up things on the fly, and but he was just so great in the pubs. So yeah, I guess I have a little fangirl. I was like, oh God, I was blushing in that video. Anyway, moving on. So, yeah, so Royal Shakespeare Company, famous. If you ever go to England, if the taxes ever go down on traveling, and you go to England, the Royal Shakespeare Company is super famous. It is 3 theaters built in where Shakespeare was born, in Stratford-upon-Avon. Just stunning. So I think I've talked about this already. But just an incredible place and incredible acting. I remember being so sad because after I saw the acting there, I was just like, I'll never be able to watch a play in America again, because I was like, this is what real real acting is. It was really, really hard because I used to love seeing plays in America, and I saw it there and I was just like, never, never again. But it is like that for acting, the Stratford-upon-Avon is the epitome of all acting. Everyone knows that. Like, they see movies as like below or whatever. But Vivian Leigh like went for it. She went for Scarlett O'Hara. It was like this big movie, and they were, I better go fix this. Hold on. All right, I'm giving it one last try with this earring back, and then maybe the earrings come off. I don't know. I don't have what it takes to actually get across the house for anything. So I'm disabled, for those of you who are new. So like, this is all I got. Anyway, so like big earrings, I'm like, woohoo, I can handle the pain. I can handle the pain, because there's way more painful for me. But it's worth it. It's worth it. Yeah, basically she went for it, and it was a big deal. And what she did was, she didn't even, it's an amazing story. You have to watch her biographies or whatever. But what she did, they were really trying to cast her. It was a really big book. It was a huge best-selling book, amazing book, and just incredible book. And what happened is they kept trying to cast. They did a casting call everywhere, and that didn't work. And they finally had someone on set, and it wasn't working with the person on set. And so what they did is they snuck Vivian Leigh onto set, and they dressed her up as Scarlett O'Hara, and they just had her come riding through Atlanta as Scarlett O'Hara, and she just did the scene instead. They're like, that's your Scarlett, and it was over. Like, that was her. And she is. And part of it is her upbringing. Like, she fit in. She was raised wealthy. I mean, I didn't know that when I watched the film. I grew up on the film. And I want to warn you about that. Like, it is about the South. And right now we are a society that's being driven by the mainstream media to be so divided and so, we are more about our differences than, we're more different than we are alike. And that's not even remotely the case. But the South, that was a place in our history. And when I was growing up, one of the ways that they made sure, they knew when I was growing up that the way to make sure that history did not repeat itself is to show us what it was like, they made us aware of the South and what happened. And it didn't like glorify the South in any way. It was like a picture of how things were. And it was rough as a kid to like see slavery and how things were, and it was such a stark contrast to how things were. And you just knew, you were like, that is our past. Like, that is our history. And you knew what things were like. You knew where we come in. And it really helped like, that is our past, and that is where we came from. That's how we got here. Like, that is how Atlanta fell. That's like, this is how we got to where we are now. This is the Civil War that happened. This is how we got here now. Like, this is the war that was fought in order for us to be together. And what's interesting is that the program that we have now, it's so like one note. It's all the same. It all has the same thing. Like, I was just watching, I was like, oh, fine, I'll try. I was like, let me just try Amazon programming for once. But what was funny is that I was like, when I watched it just today, I was like, it was like advertising Mother's Day. And I was like, let me just try it. But as I went into it, I actually said in my head, I caught myself saying in my head, I wonder what they're going to, Tiberius. I was like, I wonder what they're going to try and feed me today. Like, I wonder what they're going to try programming today. And I was like, when did I start doing that? Like, when did I start getting like bitter? Like, and being like, what are they going to feed me today? And then I started watching it and I was like, oh, that's why. Because it came on, and maybe it's because we've been watching these movies together. But it came on, and it was like actresses that I love. It was like Aniston, and it was Julia Roberts, and it was just all these actresses and people that I love and respect and everything. And so I was like, okay, let me watch them and let me see, what's done. And out the gate, like, it's like, Aniston plays a divorced woman that's like, oh my God, it's very clear that he's going to tell her that he's probably going to get married to another woman. Like, I want to tell you, first of all, he undermines her authority right out the gate with her kids. Her kids undermine her authority, and she's just like, oh, when did that start? Right away, you know, she counts to 3, they just undermine her authority. The dad undermines her authority, and then says, I want to speak to you. And what does she do? She goes all goo goo gaga. I'm like, oh, are we going to get back together? I think something may be starting. And I'm just kind of like, since when do divorced women, like, I just couldn't relate to it all. I don't know a single divorced woman who has been divorced forever being like, oh, is he going to call me? Oh, and calling up her girlfriends and being like, is he going to call me? And then they just went on to introduce all these women. And I was like, you know, I remember back in the day when they did movies on, like, when they finally did movies about being a parent and stuff, and they did movies called Parenthood. Those were hard-hitting movies that were uncomfortable to watch because they were honest about what parents were actually going through, like your kids hitting their head with a bucket on the wall, and it was a bad thing, and you knew it shouldn't be happening, and you were trying to stop it, and you were doing everything to stop it, and you know, putting them in therapy instead of being like, oh, isn't that cute, and just moving on. And instead today, like, every woman that went by, like, the men were fulfilled and satisfied and confident and happy in Mother's Day, but all the women were just like, had these big holes in their lives, and they all needed something, and they all needed a man, and they needed the man to feel better about themselves, and they were all goo goo gaga over a guy, and they all needed their kids to like them, and they were just always like, ah. And I was like, not one of these women are empowered. Not one of these women are empowered. What do you think they're telling us? Like, they're not saying, like, this is a movie about you women. Like, movies used to be like a reflection of who we are. Like, who we are, we're supposed to see ourselves in the movie, and then it's supposed to be like, oh, here's your normal everyday life. For example, we were watching Adventures in Babysitting, right? We were watching Adventures in Babysitting, and I was telling the person that was from the other country, and I was like, see, that's exactly how things were. That's exactly how things were. That's exactly how things were. And they were like, really? What's a babysitter? Like, they didn't know what that, and they were like this, and they didn't. And so I had to go through all these things that were part of American life. And like, and I was like, this is a perfect typecast of this person. We all knew this girl in school, and we all knew this kid in school, and we all knew this kid in school, and we all knew this kid in school. And they wore this, and they wore this, and like all these things, and this is what babysitting did, and this is how it felt to be a babysitter, and this is da-da, and just all the way through. And like, the group started talking about their experiences and what it was like and what it was different like in different cultures. But in so many ways, like, it was all these different things. Like, you know, it made us all talk about our similar experiences and relating to that film. Then started the adventure. Like, that's what you're supposed to do, is start it of, we all relate to it, and then it goes off the rails, and it's an adventure in babysitting, right? And how it isn't, like, how it suddenly becomes this. And it was very, very interesting. Like even the girl who like wanted to get the guy in school, like even the girl who wanted to get this guy in school, when she was excited about it, she was empowered and dancing around the room. I mean, they all looked, it was this unanimous, like they all turned to the screen, and where they looked at me, and they're just like, she's dancing. And I was just like, right. You know, like, obviously I love this movie, like, because the girls, I mean, I was really young when it came out, but I was this little girl, but I can see why I loved it, because the babysitter starts by like, she's happy about the date, and she starts by dancing about it. That's empowerment. Like, she's happy and she's excited and she's dancing and she's like, yeah, she's okay with, you know, being empowered and embodied. She's embodied. And when she's upset, she's upset. Not one of these women was embodied. Like, not one of these women on Mother's Day. And it just it doesn't reflect not one of us. I don't know a single person, like, in that entire movie. I couldn't get through it, because I was like, I don't know anyone like that. I know kids like that. But the women in it aren't like, oh, the women are bedraggled. Like, they're just like sunken. They're exhausted because they don't know they can tell their kids no, and they don't know that they're supposed to like put like actual consequences in place. And when they put the consequences in place, then it's on the kid and it's not on them. And the consequences don't have to be hitting. They can actually just be like consequences like, okay, now you get this removed. If you don't do that, now you lose this privilege. and there's an actual consequence, and then the kid learns not to do it, and then the parent, goes on with their day without being, losing all their, being drained of their battery, and their kids just running over them with, a Tonka trunk. And instead, this movie's just kind of like, isn't it cute when your kid like runs over you? And it just is like, isn't it cute? And I'm like, yeah, that's programming. Like, it's just programming. But these movies, like Titanic and, Gone with the Wind, it's going to be triggering, because I feel like it's going to be triggering, because when I watched it again recently, I was like, we had to watch it as a group, and I think we watched it, I don't remember when we watched it, sometime in the last 6 months. And I was just like, oh God, when I show it for Insider Movies, you guys are going to freak, because and this one was made way back before 1950. And it was so brutally honest about how things were. And it's supposed to be, yes, there's a love story in the middle of it. And yes, people get caught up into it. But now everyone's just kind of like, oh my gosh, they portrayed slaves. It wasn't supposed to be about that. Like, it was the fact that, yes, that happened. And yes, if we keep ignoring it, that's how it happens again. Like, you have got to feel uncomfortable. Like, watching it when I was growing up, like, I saw it and I was just like, it was horrifying, and it was uplifting, and it taught that hard work gets you through, and it just taught all these things. It was this whole fabric of reality. And it didn't make a statement. It was just a picture of reality. It was just like, yes, a love story against reality. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for anything that captures reality. And that's what Titanic did. It put a love story against reality. This harsh, cold reality. Of course, now we know that Titanic actually sunk for another reason, because of the iron, because the people... they knew something was going to happen. We found out all the reasons why. There's this amazing documentary, and I'll try and attach it below. But it was the greedy bastards of a company. It was the ocean liner that there's a burn in the side of the Titanic. Right where the iceberg hit, there was a burn in the side of the Titanic. And you know what I think is interesting is, I think for all the research that James Cameron did, I think he knew about it. Because I know he knew about it. Like, I'm pretty sure, because he did enough studies, he studied enough photographs, and I think there is a pretty 60%, 65, 75, 80% chance he knew. But there's a new archive that came up of photographs, and it shows that there's this big burn on the side of the Titanic, like 2 weeks before or something like that, before it even set off, in the port previous to when it's like actually set off. And it was from a fire that caught. They keep all this coal to burn, like the ship, to keep it going. They keep all this coal underneath, and it's the coal that they use to feed the fire. Well, what can happen is when you stack coal fires can start, and they're incredibly hard to put out. The only way to put out a coal fire, they can spread. You don't know that it's going. The only way that you know that it's going is that by like a burn on the side, or by like the temperature goes up in the room. And they had figured out that coal fire had started, so they had started emptying that big thing. And what they should have done, because what happens is when a coal fire starts, it starts weakening the sides of the ship, because the coal bins were right up against the side of the ship. And so it started weakening all that steel, which means that if the iceberg had hit, remember, it just hit the side and it looked like it peeled through it, wouldn't have peeled through it. The reason it peeled through it is hit right where all the metal had been weakened, because they didn't put the fire out. That entire time they were unable to put the fire out. The fire raged. They were scooping out because they didn't stop. They decided to go ahead with the voyage. They didn't put the voyage off. They decided, because everybody was like, you need to stop and pull out this coal fire, get the coal fire out, empty the entire bin to like put the fire out. And instead, they decided to keep the ship going, which means that everyone else kept going, and they only put like a few like engineers to keep emptying it. And you know what else shows that they knew it was happening? If you look at the register, this was all in the documentary, all of the coal engineers left the Titanic at the last port. All the guys who worked the ship that did all the coal mining, they all got off the ship. They left like rats from a flooding ship. They were like, we're getting the hell off. They were supposed to continue for the voyage. They had to get all new crew for below deck. And the greedy bastards were just like, oh, we don't want to pay an extra 2 weeks. We just want to set off. Which is why everyone's like, why did they push so fast through an ice field? Why didn't they go around? Why did they decide to drive through the ice field? because the coal fire had burned through their coal and they only had enough coal to just go straight. By then they'd burned through, the coal fire had burned through so much coal, they didn't have enough coal to go around the ice field. And you don't think James Cameron had figured that out with all that dang research, but it would have made the greedy bastards look, you know, it would have brought out corporate America again, because those guys are still around. Those guys are still, those rich families still around. Speaking of Titanic, rich people, upper and lower. You think that stuff still doesn't go around? That play that they made back then, you don't think they're doing that stuff now? All right. So anyway, but Titanic is a massive movie. Kate Winslet made Leonardo DiCaprio massive. She is beautiful in that. You got to see it just for her makeup, like the makeup artist in that. And she will not do it again because she doesn't want to do the same thing twice. And I just think that's terrible because she's the most beautiful woman on the planet. And they did her makeup like... it's Taylor Swift, like she's got the makeup look that works for her. She's the most beautiful woman on the planet with that makeup look. So she works it. She works that makeup look. And I'm like, she should do the same thing. Like she should do the same thing because that makeup in the Titanic, like that makeup artist knew what the heck they were doing. Like they put the right colors on her, which is why I think makeup coloring is so important. It's not just warm versus cool, and I'm not doing that today. I don't have the right makeup on today, but I think that you should. But I do have the right color on, which is why I look so dang good in that video with first video of the week. When I put on the red for the pain clinic, my friends were like, "Holy crap!" And I was just like, "Oh, I think it's the red. I need to wear red more often." So I just done everything I own is black. I just everything I own is black. I did too much, consulting, and I just loved wearing black. I just loved wearing black, so I could wear it during the day to consult, wear it at night to teach, and then I just put on the bling bling, different jewelry for each. Like just all I had to do was change my jewelry, and I was just like, bam. You know what I mean? Go from heels to dance shoes. It was great. I loved it. Yay. But I'm starting to consult again. I'm really enjoying consulting again, which, by the way, you guys are wanting to hire me for my research and consulting. You can just email me at bookofkatherine@outlook.com. All right. So you've got your 2 movies. So also, by the way, Gone with the Wind was also really groundbreaking in that the maid in that, she was the first Black woman, actually the first Black person to ever win an Oscar. She won an Oscar for that role. And that was groundbreaking. Do you understand how that broke through the racism? She won it before the civil rights movement. Like we still had segregation when she won that. It was a major triumph. A major triumph. And since the media has started these like race wars and things like that, they've stolen her Oscar and like robbed it and said it was a thing of racism to give someone an Oscar for playing, a slave. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like she was so proud of it. And like when she was in Atlanta, they wouldn't even let her in the theater to see the screening. And the Oscars were like, screw that. Like they just, the entire film industry fought back against like segregation. It was such a defining moment. It was the one time it was when the media fought for civil rights. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they actually went the opposite of how society was. You guys have no idea how segregation was not that long ago. Like it really was not. Like it was not that long ago. And they awarded her as an equal. They treated her as an equal that night, and she deserved it, and it was a big deal. And we're more racist now. We don't know. It's all white. Oscar's so white. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that it's so white? Because we don't make movies anymore that challenge us, that show us reality. Nothing like these movies you're about to see. They're going to be hard to see. Like when I watched Gone with the Wind, I was like, whoa, this is rough to see. And I was like, yeah, I'm not used to watching rough films anymore. Like I'm not used to watching this stuff that challenges and makes you uncomfortable anymore. And we've got to get back to that. Because if you are not used to being challenged, if you are not used to being like being able to handle something, you're going to become part of the microaggression movement where like if someone offends you, even if they don't mean to, they can say, I love you. And if you feel like they said it in the wrong tone, you can be violent towards them. You've got to be able to have like some kind of character. and watching things that challenge you, like music and movies used to challenge you and build your character so that, you know, Martin Luther King, he was able to stand up there, and you think he could handle microaggressions? He handled everything. And he just said was like, toss your insults at me. And he still stood up. You think he paid them any mind and like took notes and like made little notes about everything and everyone that said something bad about them and was like, I need to shut you up? He never said they didn't have a right to speak, ever. He just said, I have a right to speak too. Oh God, he's so my hero. And so is Abraham Lincoln. They are my two biggest heroes. So anyway, the Titanic is a movie that you need to see, and so is Gone with the Wind. And I know Gone with the Wind is controversial now. It is part of our history that we need to understand and know happened. We have to know where we came from, and so that we make sure it never happens again. And also so that we know what it is to fight. I saw a video yesterday. My group, like, sometimes they like to write. There's one guy that's like, oh, fails. Oh, I don't hate fails. There are some that I like, but for the most part, I'm usually just, for me, watching fails, I'm like, that person's going to have what I have. That person's going to have what I have. That person's going to be me. That person's going to be me. Every time, to me, fails, all I see are people, me, 15 years later. I'm just like, you're going to have a walker. You're going to have a wheelchair. You're going to be in bed 15 hours a day. You. That's all I see when I watch fails. I'm just like, why do it? And they're doing it over a stupid stunt for YouTube. Like, at least, like, mine happened during car accidents. But to do it just sliding down a group of stairs, I don't think it's worth it. Giving up your entire life to be in pain. I don't understand it for a fail. So for me, fails are a little difficult to watch. But they love them. They're like, wah, ha, ha, especially the men. So I'm just kind of like, I like, go for it. So, because they put up with my stuff. Like, they put up with my commentary. So I'm like, you guys go for it. So anyway, we were watching it. But there's one where a robber tried to get over a counter. And the girls behind the counter, the two girls, beat the crap out of him and pushed him back. And I was just like, where did the girls get that spirit? And then I was like, I wonder if they watch my channel. Like, that thought even came into my head. Because I was like, nothing out there teaches girls to fight anymore. And I was like, I do. And I was like, I really hope they watch my channel. Like, I don't know why that thought popped in my head. But let me tell you, like, these movies will teach you how to fight. Like, Scarlett O'Hara fought. She freaking fought. And we have that ability to freaking fight. And that's just it. We have the ability to fight no matter what. So what? Yeah, of course she's fighting for the wrong side, but we have to understand, like, she had the right to do it. She had the right to do it. We have to be able to hear the other side. It's beautiful, and it's the first color film, and everyone thinks that you know it. And Titanic is just stunning. I remember seeing it, and I went and saw it like 11 times in the theater after that. I even bought my tickets for my parents, and I went and made sure that I saw it in LA in the Westwood theaters and the big theaters. I made sure I saw it in their theaters only. And oh my gosh, like, I think I had nightmares after a couple times seeing it in that. So, but I'm extremely, like, I'm a lot different now. Like, I'm a lot stronger than I was back then. But I didn't know a lot of what happened. Now, what actually happens in the movie happened. I'm just saying the reason why the whole broke is different. And so I'll try and attach that below. So anyway, I'm running out of time, and it's a long Insider Movies, but I didn't get to do one last week, so I wanted to do one now. And I love you guys so much. And gosh, we just have such a variety of people watching now. And I'm grateful for that. Our family has just grown exponentially, and I feel you guys every day now. You know, the reason if I didn't say it already, the reason I continue this channel, like, I asked my husband, I was like, why am I still doing this? Like, I still haven't gotten to my studies or whatever. And I'm like, why am I doing this every day? And I realized, I think I told you this already, like, this is my social hour. Like, I don't get to go out of the house and talk to people. This is my way of talking with people every day. I'm an extrovert, you know what I mean? Like, I'm an extrovert, and I need to talk to people, and I get to talk to you every day. Like, yes, there's my group at night, but sometimes that turns into teaching, and this is a bigger audience, and that's with my husband. I don't know. I'm home alone, and this is more. It's just so long now, like I'm awake earlier, and it's a long stretch of time, and you guys just save me. So I know you guys really love me, but really, you save me more. Like, you save me more. You have no idea. I've got the better end of this deal by a long shot. Happy Insider Movies, guys. I love you. I can't put an end at this or any movie things because I can't edit. I don't have the ability. But I love you guys. Have fun and check out Insider Movies 14 if you haven't. I'll leave it up here. I'll take a moment to give it 20 seconds or whatever to leave Insider Movies 14. And thanks for coming to my channel. If it's your first time, like, oh, you are going to love Insider Movies. You're going to love it. Thanks for coming by, guys. You're the best. Bye.